start our session, and as I said, we will be talking about the metaverse and the media, but let's first watch the video. Okay, very interesting topic, I guess. So let me invite you our distinguished speakers, Glenn Gilmore, social media influencer and digital marketing strategist. Please welcome him. Thank you for joining us, please. And we have Tulanana Bohela, co-founder of OnaStories Group. Please welcome her. Okay. You can sit here, I guess. Yeah. Before we start our session, I'm really curious. I want to learn how many of you here think that we will be reading the news by using virtual reality glasses in only 1.5 years? How many of you? Not so much, Glenn. Okay, so we can start. Because we were talking with Glenn that I think he's thinking that in 1.5 years, he told me that everyone will be reading the news by using virtual glasses, right?
I think a good portion of people will.
Yeah. So I want to start by asking, can journalism be virtual?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I have a slide here.
Yeah, I think you have a small presentation for us to answer this question, right?
The other day, I attended a forum about the metaverse in a place that looked a lot like this. Mm-hmm. But that forum about the metaverse was in the metaverse. Mm-hmm. And when I entered the space in the metaverse, after I put on a virtual reality set, I found myself in a room like this. I looked up, and there were lights. I looked around, there were seats. I had to find a seat, mm-hmm. and I took a seat. And I listened to this fascinating presentation about the metaverse. And it was done, they said, please stay and socialize, and I socialized. I heard someone talking about virtual land, and I said, you bought virtual land? What do you do with virtual land? He said, I rent it to NFT artists. It's fascinating. The metaverse is a place where, like social media, we get to gather. And when we do, we have an opportunity, a new opportunity, to be in a place that has a sense of presence. You actually feel as if you're in another world. You're in a place like this. I was at NASA a couple years ago, and not surprisingly, they are very much into virtual reality. Virtual reality is one of the gateways into the metaverse. If you look at this slide here, you'll see a picture, literally a picture. That's how we're accustomed to interacting with the internet, a flat screen. That's not how we operate as people. As people, we want to have interaction. So to suddenly be able to be inside the internet, kind of like the Matrix, to walk around inside the internet, it's an amazing thing. And you will all, without a doubt, in my mind, be the innovators in this space. Whether it's 1.5 years or a little bit longer than that, technology generally surprises us with how fast it moves. Already, the biggest luxury brands are there. And Morgan Stanley, the multi-trillion-dollar financial house, has said the metaverse is going to be a $1 trillion space. When? Real soon. We'll shop there. Will work there. And what will journalists do there? They'll have an opportunity to get back to roving reporters who can go to an event in the metaverse and talk to people who are there and have a side conversation. So there's an exciting opportunity. It's not going to end journalism. It will create a new era of journalism, I believe. This was a NFT, that digital art that when you go to virtual worlds, you'll often see NFTs. This is one that sold last year for $69 million. $69 million. If you're a journalist who covers art, you're certainly going to cover that. But if you're a journalist who covers art, I think more important than even that work of art is this work of art. A group of young artists reached out to me not long ago, and I asked them for this presentation, can you share with me one of your NFTs that I can talk about? And this is an NFT by a 20-year-old Nigerian honoring an activist against female genital mutilation. So what will the journalist do is he'll take the story about the $69 million NFT and hopefully go deeper into the world of the metaverse and find out what's the story, what's the next iteration of that. There are so many stories waiting to be told. This was my introduction to the metaverse. The New York Times and Google sent out 1 million boxes like this. You open it up, you put your phone in, and suddenly you have access to the metaverse. I don't want to see the metaverse become another digital divide. If the New York Times and Google can send out 1 million of these, we can bridge the digital gap so that people can go into the metaverse regardless of where in the world that they are, and we need to make that a priority. And you might say, well, these are big, bulky items generally. This is Google Glass. It allowed me to have augmented reality. I'd walk down the street and say, hey, Google, tell me how tall that building is. Give me directions, play my music. I wink, I take a photo. This used to be the size of a virtual reality headphone. I imagine that technology, the iteration of it will move so fast that we'll have mixed reality, which means you have augmented reality with an overlay of information. You give a tap, and maybe you're suddenly in a fully immersive world, which is what the metaverse tends to be. And then you have a mix of the two. We're in an exciting time. It's the next generation, your generation, that will help us define the metaverse, and that's the important thing to understand. We're all stakeholders, and I look forward to your creativity there. Thank you.
Yeah. Can we also see like the shape? Oh, okay. So this is the thing that the New York Times...
This is literally what...
1 million people, right?
If you subscribe to the New York Times at no additional cost, they surprise you. This was a little gift from Google and the New York Times. But you can go onto Amazon now, and instead of paying outrageous sums for most, you can, for $12, get a device of cardboard that lets you enter by putting your phone in. Suddenly, and the experience of the metaverse is you look up, you see sky, you look around, and what the New York Times did in their storytelling, in their example of journalism, was to have in the metaverse a story of 3 refugees. That was the first story they did in the metaverse. And it was absolutely powerful because you are told about a young girl, 12, who's a Syrian refugee, and now she's up at 4 o'clock in the morning going to work in a field, and you're not reading this story. You're in the back of a pickup truck with her at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're looking at her friends who are also refugees, who are in essence being abused a second time because now they're working on farms, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, not going to school, but working as cheap labor. It's a powerful place for powerful storytelling, and journalism will certainly have great stories to tell in the metaverse.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very exciting, as you say. So I would like to come to Tulanana. The audience actually like interactivity, especially in the news industry. And with Metaverse, the news is expected to be more engaging. Virtual reality practices will help the audience to involve in the story emotionally as well. So in this sense, do you think that Metaverse would be a game changer in the media industry?
I think it does. I think already we are seeing the signs of that. As you said, with the New York Times, their story. But I could also point out specifically with augmented reality, for example. We had an Indian journalist, Yasmin Omar, who used augmented reality filters, the Snapchat filters that we see and we use every day, to conserve the dignity of young girls who had previously faced sexual abuse. So normally, if a man is going to interview a young girl, it's quite difficult to to kind of get across, right?
To communicate.
It's to communicate, right? She's maybe not sharing as much. But what he did was he gave them his phone, and they got to choose their own filters to cover their face, to cover their dignity. And from there, they were able to share their story, right? We're seeing stories where I think the metaverse allows for more experiential journalism. So journalism can essentially take its form as pieces, long-form pieces. So imagine having an augmented reality photojournalism piece, right? Where you have photographs that people can point their phone towards, and when you point it, a story comes out of that, and the next, and the next, and the next. But also I believe there's going to be co-invention between the machines and the journalists themselves, especially with artificial intelligence. And we're seeing that now even. We're seeing that in the likes of GPT-3. My co-founder, for example, wrote an article with an artificial intelligence app. That's GPT-3. So you type in what it is that you want to write, and it searches the net and puts together the story with you. It's a co-invention, it's not a replacement. Because often when we think about the metaverse, I know we think mostly it's just VR, but there's augmented reality, AI, machine learning. And we're seeing that as something that we can co-invent with and not replace jobs as people are worried about.
So are you already using OnaStories, that's the co-founder?
Yeah, so we're already experimenting with these things as OnaStories. As I said, we wrote an article with an artificial intelligence machine. We've done there's a better version application called DALL-E, and where you actually, I think maybe some of you have seen it on Twitter, maybe, you can describe the picture that you want, or the art that you want, in the style that you want, and the computer generates a photorealistic version of that. Think of what that will do in the art industry, for example. You essentially can say to it, I want a dog sitting in the moon with the president so-and-so in the style of Van Gogh, right? And that becomes an NFT piece that you can create. So it's a matter of looking at it like, how can we work together? How can we put these pieces together? But most of all, when you talk about the metaverse, I want to go back to the question you asked Glenn. When we talk about the metaverse and whether journalism can be virtual, I'm always asking myself, does it need to? What for? Because if it's there to elevate what journalism does, which is to be the watchdog, the fourth estate, to entertain, to educate, to investigate stories, right? Then fine, that's wonderful. But we must be very careful how we do it, so that it's not just a matter of just getting the audiences to just click, the clickbait of it all. Are we using it to advance the level of journalism? And that's the question you have to keep on asking, because at the end of the day, it's about the storytelling. All of these are just platforms. Yeah.
Exactly. So Glenn, you're digital strategist, so I'm also curious, how do you think the metaverse would impact journalism, and what should be the main strategy for news companies in terms of this?
So many brands are realizing that now is the time for them to begin to build a presence in the metaverse. And TRT is to be commended because this isn't the first time that they've hosted an event where they've talked about the metaverse, which means they're very forward-thinking. And journalists around the world, like brands around the world, have got to be thinking now about how do we do our journalism. And an excellent point was made. It's not about creating clickbait. It's about telling real stories. The difference between a reporter and a journalist, and they may blend and they may blur, but the reality is a journalist digs deep to find a story that's authentic, that's truthful. And I think that journalists at this particular moment need to do what all of us are doing. Explore within the metaverse. But understand there are opportunities there. As I said, I just happened to hear someone mention virtual real estate. And so in the metaverse, walked up to the gentleman and said, what can you tell me? What are you doing with this? How is it that this makes sense? They said, I rent my store in the metaverse to NFT artists. And it helped me understand reporters can do the same, journalists can do the same. Attend a big event that's there when Ariana Grande has a concert and 70 million people attend it. There's opportunities to follow up for journalism to ask what's happening there and what great shifts. How do we all prepare for this?
Yeah. But Tulanana, if I come to you, there is a discussion. I mean, there is a challenge for journalism. Like there are criticisms that say the line separating witness, audience, and participants fade in virtual world. So, what is your response to this?
I think it can be blurry, but once again, are we using it for the story? Because if then we're doing that, then I think even if the lines are kind of blurry, because it's no different than when a reporter is in the field doing a TV story or radio story and is saying to the camera, to you and me at home, follow me. And as you're going, you're discovering. As you're going into the trenches, you're feeling what they're feeling. I don't feel that it's going to be much different from that. As you said, as Glenn said, it's about finding the angle of the story in the metaverse, whether that works or not. But what I'm very interested in is making sure that we also have represented voices in the metaverse. That's something that, as it's growing, as it's emerging, I'm wondering to myself, as someone coming from Tanzania, from Africa, where are the African voices? Where are the women, young women's voices in these platforms? Are we thinking about how these technologies are going to work for African storytelling, and more so for young journalists that are coming up? I know for sure, for example, there are no, at least in my country, there's no curriculum that's teaching us AI, AR, and the like, right? But even if it does, I'm asking myself then, what is it for? And then also, is it sustainable? Newsrooms across the world are having issues of sustainability, right? Finding the right business models that work for them, right? Because audiences are getting less and less inclined to pay for their news.
Also
right?
accessibility.
And accessibility as well. So if everything I'm getting is from digital media, if print sales are low, if airtime sales are low, right? What's a business model that's working? And mind you, it's not going to be a one card fits all, right? What will work in the States will not work for Turkey, will not work for Tanzania, and the like. So how are we finding those business models, media business models that are going to work for us? And again, it's all about experiential. We have to just keep experimenting until we find the right models.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great conversation. I wish we could talk hours, but I mean, we are running out of the time. So I would like to kindly ask your last remarks, if possible. Glenn?
There's no one metaverse. There are metaverses.
Yes, yeah.
And they're evolving. And as they evolve, we should be evolving. And you shouldn't think of mixed reality as something that's happening over there. It's happening all around us. You need to be a stakeholder in there, and you need to, TRT, again, is doing a beautiful job of helping people understand what's happening. But realize everyone who's in the metaverse space, the extended reality space, is a student. And I hope that you'll become one of the stakeholders, because you're a stakeholder, whether you realize it or not, who steps forward to say, I want to learn a little bit more about this because I have something important to say wherever in the world I am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
The invention of the future starts today. And so it's only by us experimenting, getting it wrong, failing forward, is when we're going to figure it out altogether. But once again, it's about the story, and it's about the audience. If it's not serving the story, then I wouldn't want to go any more further with it. And then also it's about sustainability. We need to figure out how to make these models sustainable, whether it's in the real world or in the metaverse.
And maybe accessible, right?
And accessible as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, and
Thank you
thank
so
you very
much.
much,
Thank you.
the audience.